Test. Seems all right. All right, welcome everyone to our September 6th North Middlesex Council meeting. This time I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, everyone is here. Disclose your pecuniary interest. Seeing none, if you have any going forward, please put them through to the clerk. At this time, we do have a delegation. We have the Friends of the Parkville Carnegie Library. And I don't know who wants to come up and speak for yous. Who's coming up to the front? It's a discussion. How's that? Is the discussion better? All right. Yeah, whoever want, yeah, you just can come up and say your word so that we can have this discussion. And so some of us met with you last week and we had a good chat then. And I think it was a good meeting to have for this meeting. And so, Brandon, are you going to start?
Yes, I certainly can. So the issue facing the Carnegie through the fire compliance order we received is that currently the furnace is not in compliance. To be in compliance in a class 2 assembly, there needs to be fire separation between a service equipment, which is the furnace, and the assembly space. Currently, there is not. As council will recall, I did bring the report from the architects explaining the magnitude of construction costs for 2 options. One, in closing that furnace where it is and putting an 1.5 hour fire rating on it, or a secondary option of taking that furnace and moving it outside into an HVAC unit, which would be an air handling unit that does both cooling and heating on the exterior. If you can recall, those costs were in the neighborhood of $28,000 for the option to enclose, and then $45,000 for the exterior option. So currently they are not using the basement, and that puts it in compliance because it's no longer being used as an assembly. So that separation is, that whole room becomes the service room currently. Situation.
Thanks, Brandon. So, but going forward, Carolyn, would you like to speak on this?
Thank you, Your Worship. As you mentioned, we did have a meeting with Friends of Carnegie last week, and unfortunately had to go over the sad news with regard to the furnace. But part of it was also looking for options and looking for an option so that they can continue to function and operate in this community, which love them so much, and finding them a location that is pretty much turnkey. I mean, anything is going to require some subtle modifications, but something that is already available. So it was suggested to them that maybe they look at our community room within this building, as well as our central lobby area to maybe display some art. But certainly for their operations that currently take place in the basement of the Carnegie Library, maybe they could move those, at least on a temporary basis, to our community room so they can continue to have lessons and classes and things of that nature in that space. In order to accommodate that, they would need to have some sort of space or cabinets or closet area to house some of their materials in a safe and lockable fashion. Right now we have some issues with our security system, so it would have to be slightly changed so that they don't get locked out or zoned out as far as our security system and things of that nature, but that can all be done. So that was suggested to them. At the time, we didn't speak about any costs associated with that, just that would be a location where they could be moved to, at least on a temporary basis, while the other issues with the building are addressed. As we know, there is the issue with the furnace. I know that they're looking also at putting in accessible washrooms and a lift. And it was also brought to my attention, there might be some issues with the exterior ramps. So as a package, it may be some needs to look at the building and seeing what can be done to bring it into compliance so that they can continue to operate there or some other locations. So that's where we were at. They did come over and take a look at the space that could maybe be used on a temporary basis. And we discussed some of those items, like I mentioned, space to house some of the materials on that temporary basis, security for this building, how would that be worked, and things of that nature. And they were taking it back. My understanding was for the board to at least discuss that on a temporary basis. And we asked them to come to this council meeting tonight to see what else we could discuss, might be other options, or how they'd like to move forward.
Thanks, Carolyn. And I don't know who wants to speak first from your group. Who wants to step forward? And
Well, I understood when we parted last that this was going to be a discussion, so the whole council
Mhm.
would be able to get in on kind of what's needing to be done. After we met, our board met and spent some time discussing what our vision and values are, where we see ourselves in the community, how we relate to our students and our artists and the community as a whole. So those kinds of things were very much foremost in our mind as opposed to being it felt very much like the council, who needs time, has taken from the spring until now to a week and a half. We're told we have to, on a Friday, that we have to meet on a Monday, and on the Monday, we're told we have to meet the following Wednesday. And to be quite honest, that doesn't feel very good, because we have not had the time to process what's been going on here. We did come to some resolutions for ourselves. And that would be that we have moved the classroom upstairs. It will extremely limit the number of students that we can have at any given time. We are open to looking at utilizing the community room with the realization that if there's any cost involved, we cannot do that because our classes are what helps us be able to pay our bills. And for us to be paying the municipality to use a room, then we don't have the income to pay for our bills that are ongoing. Yes, there was mention of a space that we would require or need. The amount of that space would need to be determined, dependent on what kinds of activities would be here, if any. The accessibility would be in terms of doors and keys and codes and that sort of stuff, we saw as a potential problem. And perhaps that's something that can be worked out in time, but bottom line is, if we move many of our classes over here, it would have to definitely be understood that it's an interim situation, and that we cannot afford to pay for it. The other thing is, we do know that there is another Ontario Trillium Fund grant being opened up later this month. And it has a broader potential than the last one that we applied for, that we haven't heard anything back from, but a broader potential. And it would be of great benefit if our board can work with the municipality to get that grant submitted.
Just a comment to what you said, Ruth, we haven't known about this all summer. So we as council have not known about this problem all summer. Brandon brought that to us, and council at that time said, well, we do have to close the door from using it because it's under order. But we said we'd make no decisions until we talked with you. We thought, council thought it, and that was the last meeting of the meeting.
Okay.
And so council, but I'll just finish. So Brandon went forward to close, told you had to close the room for classes. But we made no other decisions because we thought we needed to talk with yous as a group so we can talk about what we can do going forward. So it isn't that we've been, as council, is not sitting on this. We actually, I think, moved on it pretty quickly by last meeting saying, we'll close the room and then let's meet with you so we can figure out what to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I received a text from Brandon late March, early April, saying that the fire marshal had been through and said that we had to, that we were not in compliance and we had to make alternate arrangements by the end of April. And then I got another text saying that he has been able to extend the time. And that was the last I heard of anything. So that's what feels to
Okay.
me like.
Well, I'm sorry if it feels that way because that certainly wasn't our intent. And we thought at council that we needed to talk with you. You know, let's get it sorted out. Right. Okay, Carolyn?
I think Brandon could probably respond to this even better than I, but my understanding was that there was the order placed. However, the municipality was given more time by asking if we could have basically a second opinion and having, is that the way I would ask Brandon to respond actually?
Yeah, so I believe it was end of April, we had the inspector go through and we were issued it April 30th. In talking with the fire department or the fire prevention officer's office, looking for clarification, looking for next steps, they basically said, yeah, you guys, you could look at an architect. So I believe I came to council and closed in May and said, let's take a look at an architect. Let's have them in. Let's see what we can do. We got that architect. It took time to get that architect to come out, go through the report, give their findings, which then aligned. And by the time we got that, it was late July. So then it came to the August council.
Okay, yeah, so that was the process. So it felt like we sat on it. That wasn't the intent. We were trying to, as Brandon said, get us another opinion and see what we could do. And so that's for the timeline.
Sure,
So-
I understand that.
So-
Communication, let us know that something's in process would be greatly appreciated because it felt to us as though nothing was happening or nothing needed to happen.
So that's why we're here now, to communicate, to improve it, right? So let's improve it. Let's go forward and see what we can do tonight. And there's been some conversations, and I know when we talked and you looked at the other rooms, but since yous have met, yous want to do your classes upstairs for now? Is that the idea?
Well, we have moved the classroom. I spent 2 days over there with someone else helping me rearrange the gallery to move the classroom upstairs for the classes that we can have there, especially the Thursday drop-in group. The biggest problem we would have would be not being able to have the number of kids in the kids class. So therefore, we would look at the community room for the kids classes and depending on the size of the youth class. So we have actually scheduled quite some time ago, a meeting tomorrow night for our strategic planning for all of our fall and winter classes. And so this is just, you know, given us a extra thought. And we would like to work as closely as we can.
Right.
Knowing that we have limitations and how do we work around them?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
think that-
Rebecca.
We thought that it might have to be a hybrid situation where some of the classes were held, we have a commitment to holding what we can there, but that we also might look to you and we appreciate the offer of support and that we would look to you for that support. And just as Ruth said to begin with, though, we have certain limitations of that support and money would be one thing and knowing that we could get into the building when we needed to. So those were just some of the things that we discussed when we met after.
And one of the other things discussed, what came out of our discussion before was that, okay, if you're looking at furnace and you're looking washroom and you're looking at lift and you mentioned the ramp, perhaps we need to look at a whole scope and see what kind of funding we can go for and how we do that and if we can work cooperatively to get it done.
I think that is part of the conversation, is the scope of the building because of what's, you know, what it needs and all that stuff. Council, comments, questions you want to ask at this time? What's that? Adrian?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question, Brandon. I know that there's the architect made a recommendation in terms of the cost, but I understand, I'm assuming that would be a professional contractor coming from London at cost. Is the option available for a local contractor to volunteer their time to do this construction?
I guess, yeah, if somebody was to volunteer their time to do it, we would still need the drawings to be stamped by an architect to say they meet the fire rating and it meets all classifications of building code. So that our building official could say, yeah, we agree with this and that it was done properly and that we can sign off on it. But yes, I don't see any
So
reason
that
we
would
couldn't have them.
potentially reduce the cost, wouldn't it?
Yes, as long as that person has their WSIB insurance, has general
Yeah,
or
like any
general
other-
contractor liability
Yeah.
insurance. And
And a question for the committee there, and I know we offer space here in our building, but have you corresponded at all with the leisure club or what space might be available there? Is that an option?
We have not discussed it. So at this point in time, any suggestions are optional,
Yeah, because the
Well,
leisure club isn't used all the,
but would there be a fee for them?
right?
So
I see. I see. So with your youth group, but I was kind of piqued my interest because you indicated those large numbers. How many numbers of youth students would you be looking at?
if I have my kids class alone, I can only handle 10. If I have help, we can go up to 20. I have materials and facility or ag facility for 20. In terms of youth, this would be the first year with the youth because I have been given interest from several different areas, and I would imagine I would start with 5 and work up from there until the word grew that there was a youth.
So this is a new program. It's just in a startup phase. Okay, thank you.
Council Irwin?
Thank you, your worship, and through you. First off, to the group, thank you for coming tonight. And certainly understand the angst and the emotions you're going through. And I feel very sympathetic towards that. So I know how hard it is to be here. I'm only here tonight to listen to information. So any kind of frank conversation we can have is really appreciated. I don't think any of us, but I'm only speaking for myself, on council is here tonight to make any hard decisions. but we really do need the information and the dialogue. So thank you very much for that. There's a lot of moving parts happening in council. We have a new rec plan. We're looking at all our properties. We're thinking about our changing demographics. We're talking about economic development and the importance of built heritage, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see all these moving pieces relate to what you're attempting to do with the old Carnegie Library. We're also very cognizant of financial obligations. So your suggestion around getting a full financial picture and looking at what we can do as a community, not just a council, in terms of potential future costs, I think is something that resonates well with fellow councilors. And if you go that route, I'd be happy to help. Okay, so just to let you know that I have a commitment to arts and culture in the community. And with our changing demographics, influx of newcomers, I think that's going to be very attractive for our community. So really, if there's any questions or comments that you feel hesitant to ask or say, would you please do so? So we could have that information and would help us with our deliberations. I think that's incredibly important. I do have a question because I have been talking to some people at the high school. Now, are you planning future connections with the high school in terms of your organization?
Okay, there's two parts here.
Yes.
One is the North Middlesex Arts Council that is just a fledgling. And we are very much working in including the high school arts and technical departments on a program. But that just because I'm part of the Arts Council does not mean that the Carnegie is. So sometimes I have to take off one hat, put the other one on. We have I'm sorry, I've just lost the second part.
Can I?
Go
can I
ahead.
second? So you asked about future consideration for involvement, and we've already had some of that. So we've had opportunity for art students at North Middlesex to display some of their work. So Ruth has been in contact with the art teacher there for that kind of thing, and that's happened at least 2 years to my knowledge, but I'm new into the process.
It happened more than that, and
Yeah.
there's already a plan in place for their work to be a part of their work displayed at the gallery will be part of their curriculum. So yes, there's quite a connection with us and the high school art department. Kink in that is that the teacher who this plan is part of, he and his wife are having a baby in November. So we'll have to be very careful for that communication to continue when a substitute comes in, but go ahead.
We have also worked with the music teacher, and we've had at least once. We had the high school. And that was very fun. We'd like to work with that again, but art and music is semester. So the music teacher is only there. Art.
Irwin, a follow-up.
Thank you very much. I understand it's a method. My daughters went to Lord Dorchester semester there for arts because only one semester or the other. It seems to be a phenomenon with rural high schools right now. Anything to keep high school students in our community is much appreciated, by the way. But I am also curious about your financial situation. So you're shoestring budgeting. And I don't think we have a current financial statement from you in terms of outflows, how much you raise to pay the utility bills and other building maintenance and other costs. Do you have that kind of information that we could have a look at in some way?
I'm currently the treasurer. We have from our previous annual meeting, something that's very comprehensive, and not in as formal a form that would be available now. I understand you have a second council meeting in September, so I could have it.
Okay. Councillor Keel and then Councillor Herder.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. To the committee, your structure, is it a profit or non-profit,
We are a
not for profit? Okay. Could you perhaps, if we are inclined to have another meeting, show us what your business model is at that level so that we could perhaps make some type of, give it some consideration? The reason why I ask is with the way the economy is, the way with being on Zoom, a lot of people have a connection and can listen to these meetings. I just know that I have had questions in the past. If you help one organization, how come you don't help other organizations? So what I would like to see is something in just a real light presentation, something on paper, show us what your business model is. Then I think that that would maybe help with the decision-making process for the rest of the councilors.
Thank you. Councilor Nerda.
I think Councilor Keogh asked my question, but I have one further. What do you charge students? Is it pay what you can, set fee, an annual fee
for
the
children's classes.
or adult classes? So I guess for both.
They're different. So for the children's classes, it's $10 per class, and they pay per session, like from September through December and January to June. And if a family cannot afford that, then we subsidize them. And by that, we have received donations from the service clubs to help us do that. We try to only cover the cost of the materials. I teach them and I do not charge. No one is paid. It's all volunteer. For the adult classes, I charge $45 per student for a class, and I pay the gallery fee for the rental of the building.
So there's two models there. An instructor could come in to rent the space from us, and then they decide what fee is charged to the student, and we help them. We facilitate advertising that workshop or whatever, and then it's different for the kids club because Ruth generously donated her time and so on to do that. And when Ruth said too that they pay for something, correct? But sometimes that's not all upfront. Sometimes that's done over 2 or 3 payments.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Councilor Canellison.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to just speak bluntly, and while I support everything that Councillor Irwin here shared with you and my desire to see these services in our community, one of the things that I would like to know, I suppose, is how can I argue to the taxpayer, or what is it you're actually looking for from the municipality? What is it you're looking for from us as owners of the building? What specifically?
Would you like? Okay. I think one of the things that is extremely important to any municipality, large, small, or even matter, is the significant impact that the arts have in the whole community. As in Park Hill, the gallery is run primarily by volunteer organizations, and we're a not-for-profit organization in order to do that. But the need that they fulfill is immense because not everybody is sports or athletically inclined and or interested. Now, trying to put a value on a piece of art or music is extremely difficult, but living your life without it is even worse. Okay. So I think going forward, I'm kind of stepping out here from Ruth a little bit. I would like to see us work with council to develop an overall plan to make that building a centerpiece in the community. Define the work that needs to be done. We talked about the furnace, we talked about the potential lift for handicap access and that sort of thing. To work with that and apply collectively, or I guess collectively, for grants from the government or other sources to do that work. It may end up being that we may not be able to get all of it. We may have to ask council for some taxpayer input to do that. But I think that the overall benefit is definitely worthwhile. It's a little bit unfortunate because some of the questions that are being asked about their potential use in the planning at the present time, as Ruth alluded to, tomorrow night, we had scheduled our sort of review meeting for our ongoing yearly plans on what we'd like to do as far as classrooms, inviting other artists for workshops, participation and that sort of thing. So our access to the facilities, it's very difficult for us to say we're going to need them 2 nights a week. We'd need something 3 nights a week. We'd need something once a month. So we'd like to have the flexibility at this time to work with a focus person or a contact here in the municipality to say, yeah, we've got a class coming up. We don't have room for it in the gallery upstairs. In smaller groups, like groups was saying on the Thursday drop-in groups, it's a relatively small group and they've got the room. But if we had a class that was going to have 20 students in it, without the basement being available, we don't have the room for it. So we need something like the facilities here. At the present time, I don't know that anybody can tell you that we're going to need that on next Tuesday or next Thursday or whatever. So it'd be kind of an ad hoc. We'd have to, make sure that you got enough notice and clearance to say, we'd like it next Thursday. Can we have it next, or two weeks more lead time in order to make those things happen? But at the present time, I find it difficult to say we're going to need it for X number of times during the period.
So, oops,
Go, yeah.
So I think in the short, as a measure right now, knowing we can't use for whatever the case is, council, it's just some support. The offer was made that perhaps here's an underused space might work. So we have a few things that we have to work within, and wondering what you have to work within and how that might come together to make that work for a short-term solution. In the longer term, I think that we're not wholly determined haven't totally determined that either. But to know that we could apply something together, or that we have the support of council, and maybe I'm speaking out here, but not even that we're necessarily looking for council to put money into something, but we're looking for you to help us in the ways we can.
Okay, and thank you for that response. I truly do, because it's most helpful. But I would concur with what Councilor Keel and Councilor Irwin asked you, is to get more information on the services that you provide. Because when I get those calls from the irate taxpayer up the road, I can defend it. Then I can share with them the rationale for the decision that we're making, because those calls do count. So thank you very much for your response.
One comment, thinking through, what do you say to those irate people? It all depends on what perspective they're coming from.
Yes.
And perhaps you can relate it more in a familial tone, in that if they had a child who could not speak, but would come to an art class and be there for 10 different classes, and the night before their award, say to her mom in her own way, Ruth is brilliant. And mother would say, why would you say that? And she said, because she knows how to ask me a question where I can nod my head yes or no. And so I know you don't need to hear those stories because you have a much broader. But if that family were the one with that child, what would they want?
Just to share with you my background, I spent 35 years working with special needs populations. Okay, so I totally understand where you're coming from. All right, and I've seen some of the greatest artists at a level that could not function academically, but they certainly were creative. And I argued with the school board at that time, you know, what services do you provide the students who are not academic but are extremely creative? Okay, so I totally understand where you're coming from, but I need to know the understanding, a better understanding of the services you offer so that I can support you better.
Make those services for those students who can't do otherwise.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Counselor Nerda.
So I think this question is for you, Brandon. It's my understanding that they're still in lease, correct? They're in a lease agreement. How many more months or years are left on that agreement?
Yeah, it's a 5-year lease. I think in the interim, when we talked about that library programming room being underutilized, I think since there is a lease agreement and they are paying a space that we can't honor right now because of the situation there, that this isn't a viable option for us to provide them in the interim until we make a decision on what we are doing with that space in the basement.
At a no cost or low cost fee?
That would be council's decision.
Right.
I think that if they're still covering the utilities for a facility they couldn't use, I think that that's definitely a good option for them.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah, and that is something that council will have to, because you have made it very clear about your capabilities of paying and all that. And I think that is a decision council will have to make sure to make right away, that one for sure. But Carolyn, you had some comments here.
So I've just been listening and I appreciate everything you said tonight as well as at our meeting. Very much appreciate your honesty and frankness. And I do appreciate how difficult this is. And I do apologize for that. But I just wanted to reiterate what I've heard from you tonight as well as at our other meeting, just so everyone's, I think all on the same page and so that you know that I'm hearing from you as well. The first thing is obviously you're paying for the facilities right now. You're covering utilities, for instance, and that's part of your agreement there, that if we were to allow you to utilize the space of the community room, you would not have the monies to pay for it. So there would be no rent associated with that you could cover, is what I'm hearing. The other thing is I've heard, we did run into the other night that there's issues with the keys in the security code. And that's something Brandon and I have already spoken about. And I think that can be easily overcome, just so you know. So that's something, there might be some subtle cost to it to get our security people in to recode something to change zones. I don't quite understand it, but certainly we can look at that. The other thing is obviously ensuring that you have some storage. You don't want to be moving things back and forth. If you have a class for 8 weeks, you want to keep those materials there. I'm assuming for those 8 weeks or 3 classes or whatever the number of classes are. So we'll have to make sure we can accommodate you with a portion of the closet that's there, or some additional storage, lockable storage that could be put into the room. And I'm aware of that as well. I would need to meet with you to determine how much space that is, what that would look like, and then find the appropriate storage unit or cupboard or whatever that is to accommodate it. We already may have such a thing, or we may have to purchase it. Those are the things I've heard so far. Obviously, looking for financial aid from senior levels of government and applying for grants, subject to council approval, I'm certainly willing to help you with that. That's something that I have a lot of familiarity with, so I'm happy to help. And certainly we're here to help moving forward as far as how we can work our way through this. So that's what I've taken from our meeting so far. And obviously I'll take council's direction on this.
Thank you, Carolyn. Counselor Daigle.
I've heard you talking about you're not sure when you're going to possibly get a community room. When will you know what your stat or your requirements will be? How much farther into the year?
After our meeting tomorrow night, I will have an understanding of where we as a board are going to be offering classes. I have parents knocking on my email constantly wanting to know when the kids' classes are starting. So I would say by the third Friday of this month, we will need something for our.
I guess what I'm saying is as soon as we know, we can look to the community bookings for that room to see if we can accommodate them through that time. Also, make sure that that's an availability.
Thank you. Brandon?
Yeah, I don't think that there's any issue there. If we knew, we can look and we can provide them the schedule of what's open there, and then they can figure their programming around that as well. If we know that early on's in there these 2 days, and I believe that everything else is open, then that opening would just be a matter of getting them an alarm code that they know how to enter and going through that process.
So we could actually offer that to them now, so they can- doing their bookings, they can look at it.
Yes.
Councillor Irwin?
Thank you, your worship. And just want to pick up on the Councillor Daigle's point in a moment. So I think I can articulate with them. You're looking for a partnership commitment with the municipality to support, nurture, and grow arts and cultural programming in the Park Hill community. The terms of that partnership commitment, council hasn't had a frank discussion on yet. And we're on different parts of that continuum with that, what those terms look like, to be honest with you. In the short term, that commitment is just what Councilor Daigle talked about. And then the medium and long term is something that we need to discuss at the council. Am I correct?
That sounds pretty well summed up, yes.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Any more comments? Questions? Anything you just want to add at this time?
When we submitted the grant for the washrooms in conjunction with the old town hall,
Yep.
is that the same person that we would work with if we looked at another grant submission in conjunction with the municipality? Or would it be someone else?
Let me go through. I think, Estelle, you did those grants, did you not?
That is correct. It was when I was acting as interim CEO.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it's going to be somebody different. Right. And thanks to Estelle, that was a short term and she got those done in a hurry to get those through. So yeah, it will be somebody different, but it's still, I think, first of all, council has to decide whether they want to support this. We know that on the short term, I'm talking about just the use of the room. And that's something I think you need to know leaving here tonight, whether yes or no. And so that would have to be done with motion. You're making a motion for them to have use of it. Okay. Councillor Irwin, do you have a question?
May I ask clarification too? Would that include us assisting them with some storage in that room as well for their needs?
Can you turn your mic on, please?
Sorry, your worship. I'm just used to having a loud voice. I didn't forget.
Well, I can hear you, but
My friendly amendment to Councillor Meredith's motion is at no cost with storage. And I second the motion.
I had Councillor Daigle to second. it.
Oh, well, he's so
Sorry.
fast.
Okay, sorry. But, okay, you're seconding that same amendment? Yes, question.
Just so that I have a clear understanding, we're talking about the program room in the library, correct?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, in favor of that? Carried, thank you. So in the short term, did you? Yes. I don't know if we can afford a dustpan and a broom. That might be asking too much. We can probably find a dustpan and a broom.
I think that as far as your needs go, we can take that offline off of council. And we
Yeah.
can go over what your needs are going forward. I'm sure between Brandon and myself, and I know Estella's helped you in the past too, I'm sure we can all help you with what your needs are going forward.
Thank
So Having said this, you have at least a short term to at least be able to start to know tomorrow night what you can and can't do from our standpoint. But going forward, let's just open up the communications better as to what's going to happen going forward, all right? Yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick question.
Yep.
For a contact on council, who might if we've got questions, is it yourself, Carolyn, or?
I think it might be best to go through me if that's okay with you. You can also CC Brandon on it if you wish. There's the two of us. And certainly any member of council is open to as well, but Sarah is right close by and I'm sure she would, I don't want to volunteer her, but I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you as well.
Just
But we're all here, right? We're all available, but
What needs to be done with the building is to get an architect in or an engineer, which
Brandon,
So going forward, I guess it's a council decision on which way they want to go with that furnace. But we've already had the architect in, we know the magnitude of construction costs. Become compliant and use that basement again. Those are the options.
okay.
So,
but the architect and the engineer that we have paid for already seems to have been negated.
so in terms of that, I believe you use them for the accessibility
for
aspect.
The lift and the washroom.
Correct. The architect who we used was strictly for the furnace. That's the only thing. they've
I would
been
hate to
involved
pay
with.
twice for the same. And I think that's what
Yes.
you're getting.
Yes,
And moving the furnace from where it is now into another portion of the building, we would need a new one. I don't know, I'm just asking.
so I believe we know kind of what the options are. So when we go to do that package with, I believe it's Gail who was doing the architecture work, we would just probably add it into that plan as part of the scope and have her add it to the drawing, however, which way we decide to go, and then,
So we
It
don't
becomes
have to pay for all.
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. All right, no, thank you very much for your time. And appreciate council's time on this as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wanting to know more, letting us be. Thank you.
Okay, okay. At this time, I think we'll just take a 10-minute break. I think it's about 10 minutes, isn't it? Yeah, we'll start back up at 6 o'clock. If we can just, Natalie, if we can go offline and then we'll go on. Can I have a motion? Moved by Councillor Keough, seconded by Councillor Nerd, all in favor? Carried, thank you.